don't know about you, but I did not have Ted Cruz going based for gay people and standing up to a lunatic pastor on my bingo card for June 2023, the year of our Lord. But I opened Twitter this morning and that's what was going down. So I've always said I'll give credit where it's due. So this actually started a few days ago where Ted Cruz initially started speaking out against a law in Uganda.
Yeah, so this is a Uganda law. We've got some reporting from the New York Times here. The president of Uganda signed a punitive anti-gay bill on Monday that includes the death penalty, enshrining into law an intensifying crackdown against LGBTQ people in the conservative East African nation, and dismissing widespread calls not to impose one of the world's most restrictive anti-gay measures. The law calls for life imprisonment for anyone who engages in gay sex. Anyone who tries to have same-sex relations could be liable for up to a decade in prison. The law also decrees the death penalty for anyone convicted of quote-unquote aggravated homosexuality, a term defined as acts of same-sex relations with children or disabled people, those carried out under threat or while someone is unconscious. The offense of attempted aggravated homosexuality carries a sentence of up to 14 years. So, Ted Cruz, not exactly known as a gay rights icon, but he tweeted out, "This Uganda law is horrific and wrong. Any law criminalizing homosexuality or imposing the death penalty for aggravated homosexuality is grotesque and an abomination. All civilized nations should join together in condemning this human rights abuse." Now, he ended up getting backlash for this take, which kind of surprised me, but kind of didn't, because there's always crazy people on the internet. One thing I did say is I don't think he realized that aggravated homosexuality included child abuse, because I imagine he would support the death penalty for that. So I think that's a point some of his critics pointed to, which is fair. But he's speaking out against the law criminalizing homosexuality and punishing it with life in prison. And that should not have prompted backlash from anyone. But apparently one big pastor and a bunch of other critics, but especially this one pastor, really pushed back on Ted for this, right?
Yeah, so that's what happened this morning. It was a pastor out of Florida. This guy has almost 50,000 followers on Twitter. You hate to see it. I would like to think these kinds of people are just fringe lunatics, but they have people that follow them and listen to them. He says to Ted, "Go tell it to God, Ted." And then he quotes Leviticus. He says, "If a man lies with a male as with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood is upon them." Leviticus 20:13. So he's highlighting a law within the Bible that is advocating for putting gay people to death. And then he said, was this law God gave to his old covenant people horrific and wrong? Yeah, I would say it is. And it's one reason Christians don't elevate this verse and try to focus more on the New Testament. Because guess what? The Old Testament has some crazy stuff within it. And most people recognize that that was replaced by Jesus being born. Even within Christianity, it's very, you've got some denominations that will still say kind of a convoluted mashup of like, well, some parts of the Old Testament still stand, but some were replaced by Jesus. But most Christians like me would say Jesus replaced the Old Testament. The Old Testament was a set of laws given to the Israelites to live under. And even then, it was bad. And if you don't have some questions about some of that, like I have had to do with my religion, you need to, put your thinking cap on a little bit harder. That's
well, even Ted pointed this out in his replies, right?
Yeah. So Ted actually came back at him. And I thought, Ted's a smart guy. And it's important to remember that because he can be a little griftery. He can definitely play to the base. But this guy's a Harvard law graduate. He's no sucker. And he turns out he does know the Bible pretty good. I think his dad is actually a pastor as well. So he brought that energy in his reply. He said, part 1, "Pastor, I don't know you, but I honor your ministry. Your biblical analysis is an error. Jesus told us to, quote, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's and to God the things that are God's. We are talking the laws of man, not the Old Testament laws of God. Do you really believe that the U.S. government should execute every person who is gay?" And then he did a part 2 follow-up where he said, "Leviticus also tells us, for anyone who curses his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. Should the government execute every child who's disrespectful to his parents? That ignores grace and the New Testament as our Savior taught us. Jesus said, let he that is without sin among you, let him cast the first stone." And so I thought this was, a very graceful way of handling this. I probably would have gone for the throat because this man is literally trying to advocate for, killing gay people and using the Bible to do it. It's not the first time I've seen the Bible used to justify horrific things in both the present day and in days of old, where they used to use it to justify things like slavery. But I don't know. It's just sort of the audacity of something like this in 2023 to come online and write it and not fear any kind of backlash for saying that. That should really tell you something about how insulated some of these communities are. But Ted's absolutely right. Not only as far as how Christians should think about this and how the grace in the New Testament replaced the old, but also as far as like there is a separation of church and state, and you should want that if you were a Christian. You should not be advocating for the government to take your rando Old Testament laws and put them into place to govern people. Being a Christian is a choice. God gives you free will. If you choose to live under these laws and submit yourselves to them, go for it. You have no right to try to push them on other people or force other people to adopt them and how they govern a society. And if you try to do that, you're really very, very foolish, because you open the door, you set the legal precedent for allowing the government to use any religion to come in and govern other people. And I don't think you'd like it if all of a sudden Christians were in the minority, which, by the way, is rapidly becoming the truth, because more and more people are leaving Christianity due to crud like this. And all of a sudden Muslims are the majority, or Buddhists are the majority, or whatever other religion is out there is the majority. And all of a sudden they're using the precedent you sat to put their laws in place and govern you. You wouldn't like it, so don't do it to other people.
No, and I appreciate this from Ted Cruz. I think this really is the bare minimum. If you support freedom or limited government in any way, shape, or form, you have to oppose the criminalization of homosexuality. But you do have people, I mean, it's hard to tell how widespread they really are, because Twitter can be not representative of the public. There is polling on this, and obviously almost all Republicans would not support this still. This kind of crazy criminalizing homosexuality. The aggravated homosexuality part gets a little muddied, because it's like they're mislabeling that. That doesn't have anything to do with homosexuality. These things they're
right. Would they not execute you if you molested a child, no matter what gender you are?
Yeah, right. It's that shouldn't
or what
be
sexual orientation. What?
Correct. You're right. And so I think people who are trying to seize on that are being too clever by half. But yeah, look, it's just sad to me that this is like a stance that for a politician to take. They have to get flack. Like, I mean, that really is evidence to me of some backsliding on these issues, because President Trump, when he was in office, launched an international diplomatic initiative to lobby for the decriminalization of homosexuality abroad, spearheaded by Rick Grinnell, who was the first Senate-confirmed cabinet-level official who was openly gay and served in the Trump administration. So everyone thought that was good. I mean, I went on the Glenn Beck radio show to discuss that, and he, despite being, a devout Mormon who thinks being gay is a sin, agrees that it should absolutely not be a crime, and he supported that initiative, and we came together on that. And so it's sad to think that we've perhaps even just backslid from where we were a few years ago.
I don't think I would look at it that way. I think Trump was just a massive exception to many, many things, where he could get away with things other people on the right cannot. I think that
the party went along with it.
The party went along with it, but I was going to say, I think for two reasons. One, Trump was crazy, and if you didn't go along with what he was saying, he was going to come for your throat, and then his whole base would turn against you. So nobody pushed back on Trump about very much on the right, period. But I also think there's this really pervasive mentality across, I think, everybody in politics, where as long as somebody can be doing things that you don't unilaterally like, but as long as most of what they're doing is stuff that you really feel like is standing up for you and like they have your back, then you're going to turn a blind eye to it. And I think with Trump, I know many within the evangelical world, he did many things that were against their religion, and they didn't care. They didn't care because he was pro getting rid of abortion, and because he'd say nice things about Christians publicly. And that's really all it took, right? They didn't need a whole lot more than that. Christians have this real victim mentality themselves. I've grown up around it, where they always think they're oppressed. They always think they're marginalized. They think that they're like the poor little people that are getting bullied. And it's like, no, you guys have had the majority for decades and have used it to push your views on other people. Like, what are you talking about, where you feel like you don't have this representation and you need a strong man? But they do. That's why you'll see if a D-list celebrity comes out and says anything about Jesus, they're just like, oh my God, Kirk Cameron, DJ from Full House, we'll pay you $10,000 to come speak at our church because you're famous and you like us. You have to be there to know what I'm talking about, but trust me, it's very present.